If everyone wants to come in and sit down, we're going to hear from these fabulous authors, Kris and Dave. My name is Polly Litovsky. I'm with My Word Publishing, and I helped Kris and Dave publish their book. And I just want to tell you a little bit about what you're in for today. We're going to hear from Kris and Dave, of course. We're going to have a little Q&A with them and a little heads up. We're going to then turn it over to all you guys who are their team, their squad. And so you can come up with some questions now. You can make them as embarrassing as you want. Heads up. Both Kris and Dave are going to read an excerpt. And actually, Dave is going to be a little more of a storyteller. And Kris will leave the excerpt of her choice. And we also have a special guest, Dale Wakasugi. Dale, we're going to hear from you. And the owner of My AED CPR. So we're going to hear all about his information. And we are going to ask you guys for a couple of things. We need some help. And you guys are their squad, their team. So I'm going to ask you for a few things that could maybe help them out and get this book into the hands of those who need it. And then we're going to take a group photo as well. And of course, continue to eat and drink and buy some books. Okay? We do have some special people here, including that 911 operator. Is it Courtney? Okay, terrific. I'm just thinking, we're in the safest place in the whole world right now. Right? We got Joe, the EMT guy, we got Courtney, we got Dale. We're sitting pretty here, so if you're going to have any kind of cardiac arrest, please do it now. I met Kris and Dave, a year-ish ago, I guess, and our first call, hey, where are you from? They said, Woodbury. I said, hey, I was born in Woodbury. Really, whereabouts? I got no idea. I was there. That's when it was farmland, 1960s. So that was exciting. My father in the 60s and 70s in Minneapolis was also a reporter, journalist. So we bonded right away over that kind of stuff. Before I introduce Kris and Dave, of course, I just wanted to explain to you what it takes to write and publish a good book. Because in this day and age, of course, we could, these classes that say, come and hang out, write a book in 48 hours. Oh my good Lord, can you imagine? And with the AI and people uploading books onto Amazon by the end of the day. But here's what it takes to do a good book. I just want you to really recognize and appreciate what they've gone through. It is often said that you don't write a book, you rewrite a book. So that first manuscript is, well, I call it a barf. I call it the big barf. You just barf it all out, and then you start sculpting and then crafting, and then you rewrite and rewrite. And with a book like theirs, first you have to live it. And then it would have been a very different book if they would have lived it and then immediately gone into writing a book. You got to live it and then, understand, even years later, what you're really getting out of that. And in fact, a good editor, good publisher will not take a memoir right away because they haven't sat on it and noodled on it long enough to know what they can then teach us, the reader. So it would have been a very different book. But they waited on it and then wrote it and rewrote and then rewrote and then got editors involved. So that's what it takes to do a good book. And then you fuss and fiddle over the small details, like where should we put the page numbers? What should the chapter heads look like? What should those first paragraphs look like? Should we have a flush left drop cap? You guys got no idea. These people are never going to look at a book the same way again. They're going to. I can see you guys at Barnes & Noble looking at a book. Oh, do they know nothing? Do they not know that you should put the page numbers in the lower out corners? It's going to be very interesting to see your take on that years from now. So I'm going to give you guys a couple of tips on how you can really help get the word out and into the hands of people that could really use this messaging. One, would you please consider leaving a review on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Goodreads, one of these, all three, extra points for you upstairs, you know what I mean? But, Amazon would be really good. The way Amazon works with their algorithms, the more reviews, the more they start working on your behalf, and we know that Amazon is the beast, so we need to cater to that a little bit. If you guys know anyone who has a podcast, who's a host of a podcast, that this messaging would serve their audience well, please consider making that introduction to Kris and Dave. If you guys belong to a book club, please consider reading their book for a book club. And they will go visit your book club, as long as there's food and drink. Right? Is that what yeah, food and drink. That's the payment. If you belong to any kind of organization, there's these organizations that need speakers every week, every month, something like that. Let that trigger that Dave and Kris would be good speakers for that. I want you to consider taking a selfie with Dave and or Kris tonight with the book, always with the book, and post it on your social media. LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, that would be fantastic. Take a selfie with them, fantastic. Here's some hashtags. You ready? Okay. See you pulling out your phone, grab those hashtags. Hashtag deadline the book. Hashtag cardiac arrest awareness. It is Cardiac Awareness Month, isn't it, Dale? Is it Cardiac Awareness Month? CPR month? Okay. One of my questions is going to be, what's the difference? So stand by. And hashtag memoir. Those are big hashtags, big followings. What? You can hashtag your little brains out. Yes, those are just some. We should have had a list of them for handouts. So yeah, any more, please do it. We just went live on Amazon on Wednesday, so please help us spread that word. Of course, it goes worldwide. They have worldwide distribution. So, please help me welcome. They're your friends. They're both survivors. That's Kris and Dave.
I'm not crying, you're crying. I don't know, I didn't know whether to call this a book launch event or just a celebration of all of the people without whom we wouldn't be here today. We never imagined we'd be the tellers of our own breaking news story. And it's very different when the lights and sirens are coming for you, and suddenly you're realizing what the people who you reported on for many years are going through. You also realize how people like you are wired to come together and help people get through hard times. So with that as a preamble, it means the world that you have come to be part of this celebration with us. Without each of you, we wouldn't be here today. Without several of you in the medical team, this one wouldn't be here today. And without all of you, Deadline wouldn't have happened. And I hope that you know that as you read the book, several of you are going to see yourselves in it. Your Caring Bridge posts carried us through those very hard times, and they are in there. We took your last names out just in case you're concerned. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Because of you, I have a husband, our kids have a father, and you have a forever friend in both of us. So with that, we're going to recognize a few of the many special guests we have. So should I start?
Sure.
Okay. All right, so we're going to do this in order of appearance on that fateful night in July 7th, 2019. When I dialed 911, this woman with the kindest, most patient voice in the world, Courtney Schroeder, was on the other end. And if you don't mind turning around, Courtney, if you would stand up. She was my 911 dispatcher. Courtney, I know I've told you in person, but without her coaching me through the compressions, telling me when to check Dave's breathing, he was never breathing, but she kept me calm. And she was my lifeline when I was Dave's lifeline. And thank you. And I apologized to Courtney already for the recreated 911 call. And she said, well, I just happened to save a copy on my computer. So you guys, we will get a hold on that. And Courtney, thank you. Next in order of appearance, our EMT, Joe Baker. Joe, he's also back there. There he is. Joe and his partner flew into our house. Sammy had waved him down, and as I was doing CPR on Dave, they just inserted themselves and took over, and I remember, Joe, you said to me, we've got him. And they did. And they did everything they could. I think you heard they shocked him 7 times. But they never gave up on him. And Joe, you said Dave was fighting from the get-go to come back, and you had to tell him to relax. Thank you for helping save his life.
And thank you, Joe, for not stopping at 6.
Yeah. Okay, here's when I'm really going to lose it. I climbed into the ambulance after they loaded up Dave, and they were encouraging him. We were taking him to the U of M, and I thought, who do I call? My best friend Sharon. She's been my ride or die since 1987. And I called her and I said, Sharon, Dave's had a heart attack. They don't know if he's going to make it. And she said, oh God, what do you need me to do? And I said, can you meet me at the hospital? And she said, text me the address. What I didn't remember at the time is that Sharon was packing for a trip to Vegas for work, and she was leaving early the next morning. But the phone was hung up and she was on her way. And she was the person in the waiting room. And from that moment on, she never left my side. I love you too. Oh my gosh, there's so many. So Lori B, you came into the dark with me and you sat at Dave's side and you'd say, how are you? And I'd be like, fine. And she'd go, bullshit. How are you? So she got right in there and she didn't let me gloss it over at all. And so many more. Here, you start crying for a while.
Well, I was just going to tell a story. You know, this past week I got a call from the nurse at our insurance company, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and she called me to tell me about all the services that they offer. You know, the doctor on demand and all the health care and the health coaching and all this stuff. She asked me what my health was like. How am I feeling? And I told her I'm feeling pretty good. And how's your mental health? And oh, it's pretty good. And she started to ask me, you know, do you feel safe at home? Do you worry about food? Are you worried about money problems? And I realized after talking to her for quite a while, she had not read my file. And I said, well, you know, I had a cardiac arrest in 2019, and she seemed shocked, and she looked at the file, and she was like, oh my gosh, you're a miracle. And she started to ask me other sets of questions like, can you live on your own? Can you drive? Can you do tasks? Do you have to walk with a cane? Do you need a walker? All these things that you would ask, that you would suspect that someone who had a cardiac arrest had, you know, cognitive problems and all that. And some of those things I did have, and I overcame them. And she kept saying that I was a miracle, and it was a miracle that I survived. And I thought about that. I don't feel like a miracle in any way. A miracle that I survived, maybe. But I look back at all the things that happened. Kris taking that CPR class, us coming home that night and me not leaving the room, Kris performing CPR, the 911 caller, Courtney, the EMTs arriving and shocking me 7 times, the fantastic health care that we got at the U of M, Dr. Yiannopoulos and his team, just fantastic, all the way through, and the support that just flooded in to both of us, even while I was in a coma. And it didn't stop. Kris's work gave her everything she needed. My friend and business partner, Eric, he took over my unfinished business and then sat by my bedside countless times. All of those things, all of the support, all of those things had to happen in the correct way at the right time that we needed them. And that's the miracle. That's why I survived, and that's why Kris survived.
All right. Again, thank you for all of this. And so, Polly, I think it's your turn again.
You guys, I don't know if you want to sit down. We're going to have a little Q&A. I wanted to point something out before we dive into some questions from them. I just want to point out that about 5 years ago, the New York Times came out with a stat that said 81% of people want to write a book. So I got to poking around. Out of that 81%, how many actually do write a book? Here's what I came up with. Out of that 81%, 15% have started. 6% have written half of their manuscript. 1 in 200 actually complete their manuscript, and 1% go on to actually get published. So we know that being the top 1% of anything is should be celebrated. So congratulations on that. And of course, Kris has written this other book. When did you put that out? 2011? 2011. Beyond the Headlines. So I got to poking around. And I asked ChatGPT, how many authors have actually written 2 books? And they couldn't give me an answer. Chat came up with, well, that's very rare. So let's say you're a 0.01%er. Let's just make that up, okay? So we republished her new book under their own publishing company, Live Shot Publishing. So it came out in 2011, but now it's under their own ownership and rights. So that was exciting. So just a little Q&A, if we could. And again, I'm going to turn it over to you in just a bit. It's about the why now. This happened in 2019, and I suspect you didn't come out of your coma and you jump on writing a book. So could you tell us, walk through that process of when you thought, you know, this is something people really should know about, let's start writing a book? Oh.
Well, I would say that the way I start writing books is that a line will come to my head. And as you'll see in the beginning of this book, it is, so this is how it ends. And that's how my books start. It's like, it comes to me, and I started writing that maybe as a little therapy for myself. And Dave and I had talked a little bit in 2023 about telling our story. And then, you might remember this, do you remember Damar Hamlin, that football player who collapsed from cardiac arrest during a game? And I said, hey, you would be great to go on KFan and talk about your own experience. So I called Common Man on KFan and pitched the story. And why don't you tell them about your interview?
I think it was the next day I was on KFan. Just being interviewed by the common man, Mark Rosen.
And Mark Rosen.
Just about the experience, and I wanted to tell them that a lot of people don't know that, 350,000 people suffer a sudden cardiac arrest outside the hospital every year, and about 70% of those happen in the residence. And I wanted people to know that this can happen in your home. That's part of our story, is that we want people to know that you could save the life of someone you love. And I told that to them. And I happened to mention that we were thinking about writing a book. And so I promoted us way back then.
And what else did you say? He goes, yeah, we're going to publish it in about a year. I'm downstairs listening to this interview, and I'm like, what the hell, Dave? Yeah, go ahead.
Anyway, it was great to talk to him, but it was really a start for me to know that sharing that story could really help people. Mm-hmm. And that was really a catalyst to getting that writing process going.
Right. So that's how that happened. Okay.
So I know this might come up later when you're going to introduce Dale, but could you tell us the difference between a cardiac arrest and a heart attack? I for one, didn't know there was a difference. Does everyone know there's a difference? I didn't know there was a difference. Everyone knows this? Okay.
Yeah, a heart attack and a cardiac arrest are two different things. A heart attack is, in its basic form, is a blood flow issue. Plumbing. Yeah. And a cardiac arrest is an electrical issue. Basically, when the electricity that creates your heartbeat shuts off like a light switch. And so, two different things, both very serious, but different.
Are they handled the same?
Well, certainly, if there's a cardiac arrest, they are handled differently because the person has basically died there, and CPR needs to be started right away, and 911 needs to be called. A heart attack is also an emergency, but treated in a different way. You need to get to the hospital immediately, probably call 911 as well.
I'm sure Joe Baker and we've got another first responder, and Courtney could tell us, but they are different, and I didn't know the difference until it happened with this one.
I really want to ask about, you're telling your personal story. So did you ever, while you're writing it, did you come across things that might be too personal? No? No. All right. Kris says no.
I can tell you that in my part, I didn't really hold anything back. Being in a medically induced coma for a month, I was, as you saw in the pictures, I was connected to every kind of medical device that I could be connected to, and I wasn't able to breathe on my own. I wasn't able to eat on my own. I wasn't able to go to the bathroom. So that's all in there. You know, the whole issue with the. I'm sure the nurses didn't appreciate having to change the bedding on my hospital bed that much, but so that's pretty personal.
For me, it was, I didn't want to gloss over anything that we went through. I think I felt a responsibility to turn that journalistic lens on ourselves and share the ugly, the dark, where hope raised up and then when it was dashed. And everything in there is, well, we held nothing back. Not the call with our kids, not the talks with the doctors, not the grim prognosis, because the journey is what helps give people hope. And as you'll see when you're reading the book, at the end of every chapter, we include the lessons that we learned, either individually or as a family, that maybe in turn could help other people get through or prevent something like we went through. And if you're going to do that responsibly, you can't make it any prettier, any faster, any more glorified than what you're going through.
I want to talk about how you guys worked out the writing process, because some people might think that writing a book with someone is actually easier. It's actually way more difficult. You have different tones and different cadences, different voices, and you really kind of got to stay on track with one another. What if your chapter 2 is, you got way to it's really got to be organized. Could you touch on that?
I would tell you that for me, I think for us, that it was really pretty easy because we had worked together as photographer and reporter for many, many years telling stories. And so we worked well together already. And in this case, it just made sense for Kris's voice to be Kris's voice at the beginning, and then my voice when I woke up, and then we both share our experience during their recovery.
The way the book is told is, well, of course, I remembered every detail, but the Caring Bridge post that all of you contributed to, they are in the book, and so it's a day-by-day, post-by-post account. For the first half of the book, it's me only because Dave was in a coma. Stories of friends coming by, stories of, when Gish would call and he'd come by late at night and he'd say, "Chrissy, what do you need?" And I would say, "A shot of whiskey and a hug." And boy, he would come by with the little shooter bottles and a hug. But it's reported as it happens, and the reader does not find out whether Dave survives until I do. And then halfway through the book, I mean, he's all here, so you know that he lives. But halfway through the book, the beginning chapters is called A Voice from the Past. And then his voice takes over. And then the recovery begins. As to whether it was easy, I write on a laptop downstairs. Dave wrote most of his on his phone upstairs. And the two don't go together very well. So there was a lot of back and forth, but he wrote all of his and I wrote all of mine, and then we came together and made sure that it told a complete story. Yeah.
So if you guys can see the cover and the title, Deadline. if you could touch on why that. I think it's obvious why. I mean, I think it's a fantastic title, but also, how did you guys come up with the cover and the headline?
That's all Dave.
That's Dave. Okay.
Well, deadline made sense. It was one word that connected what happened that night and our past as journalists, where we worked on deadlines our entire professional career. So that kind of made sense. When the cover came to mind, we thought of an EKG monitor and a time clock, which you'll see right on there. And then Polly put us in contact with a great cover designer, and the result speaks for itself.
Yeah, and just a side note, where with people coming together in a way that, you know, the universe just puts people in your path for a reason. You know, we came up with these ideas. Polly showed up when she did. She had all the people to help make our book happen, the designers, the proofers, and everything. Okay, I'm gonna cry. Mark Anderson raised his hand and said, because we needed a book trailer, and we needed somebody who loved us and knew us, and who was a storyteller. And I don't know if you even got the words out of your mouth, Dave, and Mark says, I'm in. And so, you know, all of these things came together, and then the book was born. And I don't know, deadline, Dave and I worked on it for so long, and then it became, we were the ones on the deadline, and you all raced to help us meet it in a way that he could survive. So that's how that happened. Stop crying.
Okay, Kris is actually going to read an excerpt for us. Yeah, it is time.
Where is Sammy?
Sammy, where art thou?
Sammy, are you out there? So put the shades down too. I didn't know this was so tall, but I've got a book. I've got to set my book on something.
You guys will want to grab one of those cupcakes and or cookies.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So most of you have seen the beginning of our story. I wanted to honor the people who I kind of named at the upfront, who got us to the hospital and beyond. So I'll pull some things from the first chapter. We had just come home from that reunion in Iowa. As we were sitting there, eyes on the TV, I heard Dave make a sound that I'll never be able to unhear. It was an unusually loud, guttural, gasping breath. I looked over to see Dave's face turned upward. His eyes were open, his mouth was open. But he wasn't, like something had just exited his body. He had. Dave, Dave! I jumped up and I stood in front of him, grabbed him by the shoulders and I shook him, Dave! And nothing. For the first time in my entire life, I slapped a human being, the person that I love the most. And he simply wasn't there. In a blur of desperation and strength from out of nowhere, I pulled that 185-pound man off the couch onto the floor, dialing 911 as I did. And I started chest compressions, just as I had learned in the CPR class at work the fall before. It occurred to me I hadn't planned on taking that class. I didn't sign up initially. I mean, who wants to spend another 3 hours in the office after a full workday? But someone dropped out. The organizer said, hey, Kris, you're still here. Do you want to take that spot? I was like, fine. So I did. Go figure. 911, what's your emergency? I believe my husband's just had a heart attack. Keep counting, she said. 7, 8, 9. I remembered what my instructor told me. Push hard, harder than you think he can handle. You're his heart now. I don't remember much about my conversation with Courtney, but I remember that her voice was calm and kind, reassuring me that help was on the way. She had me count out loud as I did compressions. She told me when to check for breathing. He was never breathing. At some point during what felt like 4,000 years of doing CPR and Dave not responding, Sammy came home. I remember how she froze when she walked into the living room. Like her childhood had just left her, but the adult version wasn't ready to inhabit her body yet. She looked at her dad. She looked at me. If a child's facial expression could ever be associated with the phrase, "What the fuck?" there it was. Sammy, Dad had a heart attack. Go out to the driveway and flag down the paramedics. Without a word, Sammy ran out the door. By now, my arms felt like they would snap off with every compression. CPR training instructors will tell you that fatigue sets in after just a few minutes. I checked my phone. I had just passed 9. Where are the paramedics? I said to everyone in no one in particular. Sammy ran back in. They're here. Now what should I do? Go check on your sibling. I hadn't seen Alex since we got home from Iowa. I assumed they heard what was going on and chose not to witness it. I would have too. When the EMTs rushed through the door, Dave had been dead on our living room floor for about 10 minutes. We've got him, Joe assured me. Sorry, Joe. I can't remember how they inserted themselves so seamlessly into the CPR process, but suddenly, I was standing in our kitchen, numbly answering a police officer's questions as they hooked up Dave to an automatic external defibrillator to try and jumpstart his heart. My gratitude was diverted by the repeated shocks they were giving Dave, each followed by a nothing yet. I'd watched enough of Grey's Anatomy to recognize a flatline reading on a heart monitor. It would take 7 shocks by the AED before that damn flatline in Dave's heart showed any response at all. That's when one of the EMTs came over to ask permission to take Dave not to the nearest hospital, but to the University of Minnesota Medical Center. It turns out that he and his partner had just been trained on the benefits of a treatment at the U that can give patients like Dave a better chance of survival if they make it to the hospital at all. The treatment was called ECMO, extracorporeal membrane oxygenation, and the machine acts like the lungs and the heart, circulating blood while feeding the brain with oxygen to minimize brain damage. The EMT had the phone number of the doctor leading the program, Dr. Dimitris Yiannopoulos, on speed dial. The decision was mine to make. At a time when minutes could make the difference between life and death, I had to choose between getting Dave to the nearest hospital, just over 6 miles away, or to the University of Minnesota, 22 miles away, with the latter offering a treatment that, if he did survive the trip, could give him a better chance of recovery. I chose the U. I'm gonna skip ahead a little bit here. Up until then, I'd pretty much held my shit together. I had been measured in my responses to the first responders' questions, all the facts, all of Dave's health history, all the meds after Sammy brought them to me. I knew and delivered it in a way to a calm manner. But when I called that one person, my person, and I heard Sharon's voice in her typical, "Hey girl, what's up?" I dissolved. You know, that sobbing, talking, choking thing that happens when you finally given in to whatever tragedy or fear or horror has transpired. Dave had a heart attack. Oh my God, we're on our way to the U of M, Sharon. They don't know if he's going to make it. Oh honey, oh God, no. What can I do? Can you come? My fears were somewhat allayed when we pulled into the ambulance bay at the U of M. As I rushed in behind Dave's gurney, I saw what the EMTs were talking about. A straight shot from the entry into the cardiac emergency room. My healthcare reporter background clicked in: diagnostics, cardiac cath capabilities, every monitor you could think of, and a team of specialists standing by. The used Dr. Yiannopoulos was waiting for me and for Dave and reassured me that Dave was in good hands. He said he would come and see me as soon as Dave was taken care of. Then a nurse escorted me to the waiting area. The waiting area. Mention it and I'm hurtled back in time to the very chair I sat in. Next to a side table with a lamp on it, its soft light taking the edge off the fluorescence overhead. Random magazines fanned out as if anyone in my frame of mind could remember how to read. So this is what it's like, I thought, for the countless victims of the tragic news stories Dave and I covered over the years. He was a photojournalist, I was a reporter, and whether it was a traffic accident, a fire, or a tornado, missing children, or murder, we often arrived at the scene as the first responders did. So we were among the first to witness the physical and personal devastation. Our job was to interview the grief-stricken families who were panicked and raw with emotion, and then file the stories on deadline, over and over and over again. Now the tragedy is ours, and the lights and sirens are for us. We, the storytellers, have become the story, and there is nothing fucking objective about it. Last part here. That's what made Sharon's arrival, seemingly from a dot on the far horizon into reachable view, so grounding. There she was, hair flying, multiple bags in tow, rushing to me and embracing me in a way that infused life and hope back into my body. I cried so hard at the sight of her, 30 plus years of friendship and being there for me, all welling up in the face of this tragedy. "Have you heard anything?" She said, "Not yet." Sharon being Sharon, she then sat down and started digging through her bags. I didn't know what to bring, so I just threw a bunch of crap in here. I'm okay, here's Ativan. I thought that might help. Oh, and ibuprofen and hell, I don't know, a flask of whiskey, snacks. I wolfed it down, desperate for some relief, to fill the black hole of the void in my being. She was there. I told her everything. She shared my burden. She validated my emotions. It was just a few hours before she had to get on that plane. And yet she was by my side when Dr. Yiannopoulos appeared and began walking toward me. Is this the death walk or the hope walk? I was about to find out. Okay, I'm gonna go get wine now, and you can continue on.
Hey, you should be a writer. Okay, I want to open it up to you guys for Q&A. So you'll want to take a seat again and give it to them good.
If you want to share your own stories about that time, you know us.
Yeah, anybody? Sharon, you want to say something? How about, yeah, we do comments / Q&A / embarrass them / let's learn from them or hear your story. Anything? What's the greatest challenge that you had to overcome, Dave?
When I emerged from the coma, I was, as I told you before, connected to every medical device that you could think of. I had an anoxic brain injury, but for some reason, from whatever happened and the brain injury, I had lost many of my words. I think 2/3 of my vocabulary was gone. I could remember names, places, the past, but I couldn't remember things like table, cat, hammock. That one took me forever to get back. And so that was a challenge. Cognitively, short-term memory was just gone. I would, when I got back, I would, take a shower and wash my hair 4 times because I couldn't remember I had done it. Putting dressing on a salad 3 times because I had just done it, but I couldn't remember it. I had to relearn most tasks. I couldn't cook.
Big tragedy.
My career as a photojournalist ended because I couldn't. Well, there were many reasons, but one of the reasons was I couldn't remember how to do it. I couldn't remember how to edit. I was going to have to relearn it, and we felt at that time that stress from the job was a contributing factor. And so relearning that was going to be stressful. So I stepped away. I didn't have to do it anymore. So.
Yeah.
I'm one of the people who sent you some of those breaking news assignments. Neither of you ever lacked empathy. But if you had it to do over again, if you had that job today, how would you go about it differently, if at all?
You want me to answer? Honestly, Scott, I can't think of a thing I would change. When we did have to interact with people on the worst day of their lives, we often were met with anger and grief and how could you? But the anger had to go somewhere, and if you realize that once they got past that and they were able to talk about their loved ones, I could take the anger. I wouldn't have changed anything about my news career. If you were still news director there, I'd probably still be there. Yeah, we would all be there. Dave, would you change anything?
Not a thing, no. No. I'm gonna cry again.
Yeah. No, we're, even though we're out of the business now, we're storytellers. And this is our most important story, but we hope we're just getting started. Anybody else?
Yeah, Sharon?
Dave, what is the last thing you remember before?
Sharon's asking Dave, what's the last thing you remember before that happened?
I can tell you that I have no memory of the event. I have just vague memories of going to a family reunion.
There's a sister Karen right there.
Karen, my sister Karen, who hosted our family reunion, but really not any memories of that. It's all in photos. I do have a memory of the week before when I had a really bad work issue where my editing system crashed and took a lot of stress. I lost a whole day of editing. And I was working on deadline for a show that had to be out next Wednesday. That was a Friday. Then we left for family reunion, so I was going to have to come back home and do overnighters to make deadline. And then we got home and I collapsed on the floor, but I don't remember any of that. I say it's a gift from God. I don't need to remember it. This one, however, lived through all of it. And that's what kills me. So I can't really read Kris's half of the book because it's too hard. Because for me, that's the trigger. PTSD. The trigger is me putting Kris through this.
Yeah.
Kris, how did you keep the faith when everything is looking, all the statistics were looking?
Could you just repeat the question? Yeah, thanks.
Schulte asked, well, how did I keep the faith? You will see in the book that oftentimes I did not. I was scared. I was angry. Sometimes I felt like I can't possibly do this anymore. And I got angry at God. I mean, we've been through a lot as a family. And then I wrote that book beforehand, it's now called Beyond the Headlines, but before it was called Eyewitness News, Eyewitness Miracles. It's looking for the good in life. And I felt like God was mocking me and say, find the miracle in this one, lady, And I would say that the only reason hope wasn't lost is when I didn't have it, others carried it for me. And they reminded me that they'd hold on to it for me before I could carry it again. And I'm not proud of not being the stellar, strong wife 100% of the time, but people like Sister Karen came and took care of the house, and Sarah took care of the kids. Sharon took care of me. I mean, it's, how did I keep the faith? I let others keep it for me, and then I could go on. Yeah. Stephanie. Stephanie's a new friend and co-survivor.
I have a very, very narrow question. Yeah. We did the same scenario as St. Paul a couple years earlier than that. 9 minutes to the emergency people. I want you to talk about that 9 minutes and how you've, we both have, I know we've shared this story, but how you dealt with the trauma of those 9 minutes of life in the balance and what you remember about it and how you deal with the trauma of remembering. Because we had a little bit of a similar story, and I think it's important for people to know. And the other thing I would say is get busy and break some ribs. If you see somebody on the ground, be aggressive. You're going to save their life, possibly. That's all.
Well, here's one of the things that, I don't know, maybe Dale has a good story about this when we have him come up and speak. That CPR training that I took, that I never thought I would take, for some reason, when I saw this one, and I was the only thing standing between him and dying, that CPR training just kicked right in. Now, I have never lifted a 185-pound man, but I did it. And the training was automatic. So I was doing it. I was doing it as hard as I could. Courtney was on the other line coaching me through it. What it felt like is, I hope to God I'm doing this right. I hope to God that it works. I look back on it now and it seems like another, it feels like I'm watching a movie of myself. And maybe it's because I can't go back to that moment.
What was the song?
Staying Alive. That's, Dale, is that still the song that they teach you to do the beat to? Yeah, and we're staying alive, I hate that song now. I'm so mad at the Bee Gees but you know what? I used that song in my head. And when I never felt tired. I felt like I'm the one thing he's got. And then when the EMTs came is when I finally realized, okay, I have to let others take over.
How did it feel physically? I mean, as you were doing it, how did it feel?
How did it feel physically to do it? It was hard. I mean, you are taught to, keep your arms straight and push as hard as you can to that beat. And then Courtney would tell me when to listen for breath and then just start again. I kept thinking, what if I hurt him? And I'm like, I'm sorry, he was already dead. How could I hurt him? He's down there on the floor and it's only me who can bring him back right now. And, but my arms felt like they were going to snap off. Yeah. Anybody else want to say anything? Or ask a question?
I'll give you a softball one to end on. It's television related. We used to work TV, so I know you don't watch Yellowstone anymore.
Yellowstone was the show we were watching when Dave collapsed. Season 1, we haven't seen any other seasons. Yeah.
You used to watch Grey's Anatomy. Do you watch medical dramas? Have you watched The Pit or you have nothing?
We love medical dramas. We don't watch Grey's Anatomy because that thing got bad after a while. But the Pit is really a great show.
I've always been drawn to medical dramas, and I spent a lot of years of my life as a healthcare reporter. And so I think the human body is so fascinating and so beautiful. And maybe that helped me. You asked what kept the faith. Maybe it's because I knew as much as I did, which was also a burden when the news was bad. But we like The Pit. Grey's Anatomy used to be good until it was all about, well, you all know. Yeah. So, and yeah. Anybody else?
Actually, I have a question for Joe. Yeah, you. What? Yeah, I'd like to have Joe come up here, and I don't know if I'm doing this for, yeah, I really just want to hear about your work. Was this typical, atypical? When do you give up? Do you give up at 7? Was 7 really the lucky number? You just stopped after then? What's typical?
Well, this is a unique experience for me. This is the first time I've ever been contacted by a patient. I probably run about 10 to 12 cardiac arrests a year, and the chances of survival improve significantly when you have someone doing pre-hospital CPR. You're setting us up for success. The question was whether or not I was going to stop at 7. I'm stubborn and I'm arrogant, and I feel like I'm really good at my job. And so I didn't realize the significance of what this was going to become, but he was going to get everything. And Kris talked briefly about ECMO and the technology of it. And if you don't know about it, it's basically stepping in, using a motor to oxygenate your blood and to circulate your blood until they can correct the underlying issue. And so it was fairly new at the time when Dave had his cardiac arrest, but I knew that I wanted to set him up for success. There's only a few places that have it. It's growing, but it was unusual but it was really incredible to hear how well you've been doing and how things have gone for you. And I wish nothing but better days ahead for you.
I will just add that my cardiac arrest happened on July 7th. 777.
And it took 7 shots to bring him back. Wow. And it's 7 years since his cardiac arrest. I just wanted to recognize one more person and then we can move on. Eric Gisselson and his wife Angie. This is Dave's business partner of many years and best friend. I can't tell you how many times Gis got me through the hardest part of the dark days sitting next to Dave's side. He calls me Chrissy. He did so many things for me. And he sat by Dave's side many times, even when I didn't know he was there. He brought me whiskey shooters. And he and his son and his wife were there throughout. And I don't know if Sammy's in the vicinity, but Sammy was in the Miss Woodbury Ambassador program, and her coronation was coming up. There's Sammy, and Dave was in the hospital and he couldn't go. And Gisli said, Chrissy, we'll make sure that Dave can see that. And he set it up so that he could live stream Sammy's coronation, and she was crowned. And he watched it from the hospital, and that meant all the difference in the world to our family. And you are our heart, Gissy, and we love you so much.
I don't know if you were here before when I said it, but Gis, he jumped right in while I was in the hospital and took over my unfinished work and took care of that, and then rushed right over and sat by my bedside and supported Kris and I, and I can't thank you enough. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
I would like to have Dave tell his story. You're not going to really do a reading per se, is that right?
I think I was just going to tell him.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to go way back to something that'll put me back to that bed I was in that you saw in the video. So when I started in TV news in Des Moines at the NBC affiliate, I got hired out of college as a news photographer, shooting all kinds of things as you would expect. And it happened to be, over the course of time, each photographer that had assignments that day would get their assignments. And one of those photographers would have the assignment added on to gather a weather shot. The weather shot was, at that time at my station then, was a little piece of video during the weather forecast. That you would play, and the weather guy would say, hey, look, people out on the lake today, it was really great. And the weather shot was kind of often forgot about when you have 5 other stories to gather that day. So you'd go out and I'd shoot the stories, and I'd often forget about the weather shot and think of it at the last minute, because all of these things had a deadline. So I'd end up stopping wherever I was, trying to pull over, trying to get something beautiful I'm a new photographer. I want to do well, so something beautiful no matter where I ended up. And I did that time and time again. I didn't always forget. Sometimes I was at a beautiful place, but a lot of times I was just having to pull up in an alley. Try to find something beautiful there. Well, in the course of gathering something beautiful, no matter where I ended up, I realized that in stories there's something like that. In stories that we cover, no matter the tragedy, there's almost always a little piece of beauty in there. This family lost their house to a tornado, but the community came together, and it was the weather shot was in there. That community, that beautiful little thing, was the nice part of the story. And the weather shot became a metaphor. And then I realized that searching for beauty, no matter where you were, was something that we all should be doing. I should be doing. And so it kind of became a mindset. And that's something that I did. I had that mindset often during my years in TV news, but I will be honest, I was not like that all the time. And after we left TV news, I kind of forgot about it. Well, I'll tell you what, when I woke up from being in a coma for nearly a month, not knowing if I was dying or living or what had happened, I sure remembered the weather shot idea then. And my weather shot, I thought of it right then. I was alive right then, and my wife was on her way. That was my weather shot. And then day to day, every milestone I passed, today I got off the ventilator. Today I was able to drink a Diet Coke, Diet Mountain Dew. Today they took me out of the bed for the first time. Today I sat in a chair. All those were weather shots. And then when rehab started, I was making my own weather shots. I was, every session I would break a record, and the next day I would break it again. And that mindset really got me through. It really helped me from not feeling sorry for myself, and really helped me thinking I was going to get as much as I possibly get back of my life. Now I've started taking photos again, and my photography studio is weather shot photography.
I'm going to have Dave introduce our special guest.
Many months ago, I reached out to the American Heart Association to ask them if there was anyone that they knew of who could be an advocate for CPR. Because our purpose is to save lives by telling our story. And we're hoping that people sign up for CPR. And our contact at the American Heart Association put me in touch with the greatest person ever, Dale Wakasugi, who is a two-time cardiac arrest survivor and now trains in CPR and sells AEDs. And he is very inspiring. And Dale, if you'd like to come up and say a word,
We'd really appreciate it. In a few months, it'll be, excuse me, 19 years since I had my first cardiac arrest. I was officiating a basketball game at Fridley High School, and with 5 minutes to go in the game, with no warning, I went down with cardiac arrest. For all intensive purposes, dead on the floor. Several bystanders came out and started CPR on me, including a 16-year-old high school student at the time. They did 3 rounds of chest compressions, no response. They put an AED on me in one shock and brought me back. So cardiac arrest survival rates nationally are dismal. It's less than 10%. Minnesota actually happens to be a very great state to have cardiac arrest in. I think the out-of-hospital survival rate is upwards of 40%. And in part, which was mentioned earlier, ECMO is a new program that has really made a difference with cardiac arrest. I just want to share one story. As an AED distributor, and that's how I got into this, I sold AEDs to the Hy-Vee grocery store chain several years ago, and last year I got a phone call from one of the managers at Owatonna, the store out in Owatonna, and he said that he needed to order new pads for his AED because they used it. And it just so happened, this manager, when he called me, his voice was quivering, and he said, I'm still shaking from that yesterday, you know. And but he had taken a virtual CPR training class that I taught, and the only thing that you miss in virtual training is you can't actually physically practice chest compressions. But there's ways around that and ways for people to practice with couch pillows and that kind of stuff at home. But he told me that he remembered just enough from the class almost 2 years prior to save this man's life. And he was really shocked because very few of his store employees knew what to do. He was the only one that knew what to do and gave all the instructions and saved this man's life. So it just takes one of those saves for me as an instructor to make it all worth it, and that's why I do it. And that's why I have a passion for teaching CPR and placing as many AEDs in as many public places as possible. And meeting Dave and Kris has really been a blessing to me and my wife. She really wanted to be here today, but she had other obligations. But anyway, I'm looking forward to working and collaborating with them in the future on future projects that will help raise awareness and also help save lives. So I really appreciate you guys inviting me to be a part of this, and it's going to be fun moving forward working with you.
Hang on a second. Could you tell us about the programs you have going on over there? Is there a way to sign up for CPR classes over at your desk here?
I'm glad you mentioned it. We decided that it would be kind of cool to offer hands-only CPR and AED training for the people that came here today, if you want to. There's some sheets back there. You can take a picture of the QR code and just simply put your name and email address so I have a way of contacting you. There's a few that have signed up already, or grab a flyer. And from that, I will contact you right away after this meeting. And if we can get enough people, I'll host a hands-only CPR AED training class somewhere in the Twin Cities that's as central as possible. We'll find a location, and we'll do it soon. No charge, and so it takes about 50 minutes total for that class, and I'd be happy to host it.
I'm going to remind you guys again how you can help Kris and Dave. Again, please consider leaving a review on Amazon in particular, but Barnes & Noble, Goodreads, wherever you get your books. The thing is, the way that the algorithms work on Amazon, we really want to get 25 reviews in the first month. Their book just went live on Wednesday. So what does that mean? We have 27, 28 days to go or something. So I want you guys to please pinky swear that you'll leave a review on Amazon, okay? It's up on as an ebook and a paperback. And even though you could buy your book here, you can still leave a review on Amazon. That seems to be some big myth that you can't leave a review on Amazon unless you buy it there. That is not true. If you know anyone that hosts a podcast, please make that introduction. If you guys belong to a book club, please consider their book and they will come and visit and have that chat. If you belong to any kind of organization, say even a Rotary Club or some kind of monthly organization, association that you might belong to that needs speakers that can come and talk about their story, obviously, but also CPR and AED. Take a selfie tonight. The books are on sale right over here. Both of Kris's books are over there, and they will sign them. But if you take a selfie with them tonight and the book and post it on your social media, that would be fantastic. And also when you post it, here are some hashtags. Hashtag deadline the book, hashtag cardiac arrest awareness, hashtag memoir. And I would like to also remind you that there's food and wine and Dave's cupcakes and cookies over here. And I would like to take a photo. Do we have Lori the photographer? And Sammy passed out books to everyone just to take a photo. We're going to have everybody raise their books up and take a photo here in just a second. Sharon. You got it for the hashtags? And I thought about that last night. It'd be nice to have a little handout for all those hashtags. And they will email everyone tomorrow. Did you hear what I said there, Kris and Dave? You will email everybody tomorrow and tell them the links on Amazon as well as the hashtags. I like to tell them what to do. That's always fun. Okay, so again, books over here, and please consider that for your friends as well. And where's Lori? Oh, she's right here. Oh, right here where she's supposed to be. Okay, so you and you stand over here and turn this way and hold the book. I want all you guys to hold the book up like you mean it, like you love it. Okay? Everybody smile. Oh, hold on. Okay. Okay, I want you to make a scene too, like yay! Yay! Are you getting it, Lori? Are you getting it? Are you getting any, Lori? Oh, she's an animal. Okay. Okay, we're going to do it again. Show some life. Books up in the air. Yay! Thank you. So please help me welcome Dave and Kris, newest authors.